One of the events I'm participating in July is Booktube at War. And it's a simple enough event. We're encouraged to read books about war, fiction and nonfiction. Any war will do. I have decided that I'm going to do a tightly themed Booktube at War read for the month of July. And so I have a TBR list, like a lot of people already do. It's fairly short. I'm only trying to tackle 5 books in July for Booktube at War. One of them is nonfiction about the Civil War, but the rest of them are novels about the Civil War. And you know what? I don't know a lot about Civil War fiction. So this should be a really, broadening experience for me. So the first book on my list is a reread of The Red Badge of Courage, which I believe I read in 8th grade, which would have been 1983. That would have been 40 years ago. So 40 years ago, I read The Red Badge of Courage. I don't remember it at all. It didn't make much of an impression on me. I don't think I liked it. I think it might have been a little advanced for an 8th grader. I don't know. I may read it next month and think, God, you know what? That wasn't advanced for an 8th grader at all. It's way too simple for me. But I just don't know. Red Badge of Courage came out in 1895, which would have been about 30 years after the Civil War ended. So it's still fresh on everybody's minds in the country. It was written by Stephen Crane, who was only 24 years old. So he didn't experience the war at all firsthand. But my understanding is that he really caught the nature of the whole blood and sweat and adrenaline and violence and fear and anger that was involved in the battles really well. But like I say, I have no memory of that at all. This is just what I've read about the book online. I'm looking forward to reading it and reviewing it and talking about it next month. That's number 1. Number 2, Gone with the Wind from 1936, written by Margaret Mitchell. Most people have heard of Gone with the Wind because it's this huge epic movie that's like 5 hours long. I had a girlfriend spend the night here a few months ago, and she insisted on watching Gone with the Wind at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so when I woke up at 7 a.m., she was still watching it. It was just about to end. But I don't know anything about it. My grandmother loved Gone with the Wind. It was one of the only books that she had laying around her house. She had a Bible, of course. And she had a huge red book that was full of stories about Peck's Bad Boy. I'd love to get my hands on that again because she thought it was really, really funny. I didn't see what the big deal about it was at the time. But anyway, she loved Gone with the Wind, and she had a beautiful copy there that she had read multiple times. And, there was a sequel to it called Scarlet that came out sometime in I believe it's the late 80s or early 90s, but she couldn't wait to get her hands on that sequel either. She loved Gone with the Wind so much that she wanted more of it. I understand that Gone with the Wind deals largely with the Reconstruction period after the Civil War, and that, it's got some very racist stuff in it, but it's also got some really feminist thinking about Scarlett O'Hara and what she did with, anyway, I don't know. Like I say, I hadn't read it, didn't watch the movie. I'll probably do both this month. Next month, July. Booktube at War is in July. So, number 3 is a book called The Killer Angels from 1974 by Michael Shara. I know even less about this book than I do about the other 2, other than it's hugely popular. I did find out about that. And I guess this one, so what I've read online about it, this has something to do with how it tackles themes of how the Civil War was largely about the old world aristocracy represented by the South and the new American individualism and which one was going to hold out and be the country's future. And so obviously the North were the good guys, and we needed to lean into American individualism. But apparently the author treats the South with a lot of respect. There'll be a lot of people around where I live who probably would be really grateful for that because, I live in the Bible Belt here in Texas. And, there's a number of people who still identify with the Confederacy, which is crazy to me. But, it was a different time. But man, it was a long time ago. The North won, I mean, yeah, you're not supposed to take up arms against the country, but anyway, I'm looking forward to reading it. It sounds really good. The final fiction book, the final novel on my list, is called The Judas Field from 2006, which was written by Howard Barr. And my understanding is that it has a lot to do with the effect that the war had on the veterans and relates what we know about post-traumatic stress disorder now to what they must have gone through in the Civil War. Anyway, I'm really excited about all four of these novels, to tell you the truth. And the Civil War is not something I've ever been interested in. In fact, when they announced Booktube at War, I thought, well, there's one event I'm probably not going to participate in because, I don't really enjoy war movies, and I haven't really read a lot of war fiction, although I guess you could argue that The Quiet American, the best book I've read this year, was certainly a war novel too. But finally, the final book that I'm going to read for Booktube at War, and I don't know, maybe I'm getting a little too ambitious again, but I have a Bruce Catton book here called Never Call Retreat. This is the third book in a nonfiction trilogy, which I believe is called The Centennial History of the Civil War. Anyway, this comes highly recommended by Steve Donahue again, and so I'm going to read it. And I don't know, I've read a couple pages of it. The guy's a good writer, so I think it'll probably be an enjoyable journey. So anyway, when I say Randy Ray goes to war with Booktube, I'm not declaring war on Booktube. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just participating in Booktube at War, and I hope you guys are too, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I do have another really small novel that I'm not even going to mention in this video that is written by Dalton Trumbo, though, so you can guess what it is. But I might sneak that into my TBR stack too, because it's so short, it probably won't take long to read it all. Anyway, that is it for Booktube at War TBR 2023. More videos to come. Thanks for watching.